All right, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for attending the CVC Exchange Training for Admissions and Records. We're going to go ahead and get started. Folks may continually join throughout the hour. And as I'm sure you've noticed that this webinar is going to be recorded and posted later as well. So we will be sure to get those resources to you. But we're going to go ahead and get started with admissions and records today. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Mackenzie Johnson, and I am the platform management and support supervisor for the CVC Exchange. So you may have worked through support tickets with me or members of the CVC Exchange team. And joining us today to help answer questions, kind of monitor the chat, and then of course, say hello to you all as well. We have Mike Vogt. Mike, do you want to say hello?
Hi, everybody. I think most of you probably know me by now, but if you don't, my name is Mike Vogt. I'm the Director for IT and Chief Technology Officer for the California Virtual Campus.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mike. So as we go through our presentation and information that we have for you today, we just want to make sure as well that if you have questions, you can throw those in the chat, the Q&A, or we'll share resources at the end where you can follow up with questions with our support team. So just be sure to either do that today or follow up with us later, and we'd be happy to help with anything following today. So with that, let's dive in to the topics that we are going to cover. We're going to talk about and view the student journey. For those of you that haven't seen the student journey and some of the recent product changes and updates we've made. We're going to review the admin dashboard, the certain components of the admin dashboard for the CVC Exchange that our admissions and records folks need to be familiar with. And then what is very helpful is we're going to review some of the common errors, reminders, and policies that A&R folks or colleges should be aware of for students that are using the CVC Exchange. And then we'll have time to announce, some of our future trainings, other support resources, and then plenty of time for questions. But of course, feel free to put those in the chat Q&As as we go through today. So to kick us off, the first thing we're going to do, like I said, is we're going to watch this student journey video. And this student journey video is, sorry about that. This student journey video does not have any audio, so I'm actually going to be talking over it as we go through. But we'll go ahead and play what the student sees as they are using the CVC Exchange, and then talk about how you're going to see that on the admin side and the tasks and policies and things you need to be aware of for students to be successful here. So as we go through, we encourage students to start at cvc.edu. As you can see, they can certainly search for courses here without ever logging into their home college at that point. But what we encourage students to do if they're attempting to actually maybe register for a course or want to actually log into their profiles, they can start here by selecting login. So that's what we're going to see in this example. But another reason why we direct students to this page, as you can see, is there are a lot of resources across the top of the page that we often direct students to about financial aid, things like that. So when the student selects login, they'll be taken to a page that looks like this. You may be familiar with this because the admin login is right here underneath. However, students will then need to understand if they are currently attending an active at a California community college, or if they are not currently attending a California community college. Depending on how they answer that question will determine their next steps. Obviously, for the CVC Exchange, we're going to be walking through the steps where a student is currently attending a California community college and is going to go through and select the home college from their drop-down list to then be able to log in, which we will then see here. Once a student logs in, this is the student dashboard. This is really helpful to see. All of this is in test. By the way, everything we're showing today is going to be in test. But what is helpful to see in the student dashboard, which is exactly what it says here, dashboard, is that there's also another option here, class schedule, that we're going to review. Students can search for classes here, and we're going to click into that profile and be able to see actual student information. So when the student clicks on the class schedule versus the dashboard, that's where they can see courses that they have dropped or withdrawn from within that term. So that is oftentimes students may be confused. Hey, why can't I see that on my dashboard? If you click on your class schedule, they'll be able to see that. Currently, the student is not registered for any courses. But before we go search for courses, the student can go through and confirm that all of their IDs are here, or if they need to access those IDs at the teaching college, their CCC ID or the email that they have on file with the CVC Exchange is all accessible through their profile. So now the student wants to search for a course. So you're familiar possibly with this search box. The student is searching for an art course. Now, before we go too far down the search, I wanted to take a moment to talk about the search options here, as well as the filter options that we'll see in just a moment. So as you can see, the student's home college filled in automatically because the student is signed in, right? We went through that sign-in process with Napa Valley College, the student authenticated, and now we're going to search for courses at other colleges. These search options all depend on how the student is looking for the course. The default search option is keyword. So that is how we are going to direct students in that case. So we are going to find the most relevant courses to the keyword search art. But if you search by CSU, Cal Getsy, you can see the other options that are available for students. The next piece, before we even start looking at the available courses, is to really understand the filter options here on the left-hand side of the page. So there are a few here: instant enrollment, available seats, and a date filter down here that are preset filters that allow students to basically only see courses that are available for registration, meaning upcoming start dates, right? Or courses that are starting tomorrow. We can't register students for courses that have already started or that today is the start date. So that is why those filters are set that way. You can definitely adjust those filters as you're searching for courses or curious about inventory from this view, but just note that those filters are preset. But now the student has found a course that they want to register for at Golden West College. As the student clicks into the course, they'll be given more information about the course description, tuition and fees, which of course is dependent on the student residency. So that is why it's really important, and which we'll see in a moment, for us to determine with the home college what that student residency status is. So the teaching college is charging the student the correct tuition and fees. The student now can see the available course sections, right? The sections that are available for the course. We show them the live seat count. So the student's going to make sure that there's enough seats available in this course and in test. And then we're going to be able to say add class. And because the student is already logged in, this is where they go right into essentially our registration workflow, where they will see the student consent form, the abbreviated enrollment record, and then that process will take place. So we will watch the student go through this. These are the consents. We've added a few over the last year or two that students need to consent to as far as GPA, transcript, etc. They sign their full name and continue to the enrollment form, the abbreviated enrollment form, where the student will fill out, their name is already pre-filled, but they will fill out their address, and which will then be validated. We did add address validation as a new feature. So if you see here, the student's typing in the address, and then we'll say validate now, and then continue filling in birth date, etc. Once that information is complete, the next step is going to be residency. If where the student is registering from has the information turned on for our system, the CVC Exchange, for us to pull that residency information, we will pull that automatically, and the student will not need to say, this is my residency status. It's only for colleges that are still either in the process of being implemented or haven't maybe been fully implemented yet, that the student will have to verify their residency, and then we'll ask the home college to confirm. But otherwise, we just pull that in automatically using the APIs that we have integrated with your system. So in this example, the student is going to Napa Valley College is not fully integrated. So this student is going to need to select their residency, which then Napa Valley will confirm. Here is where we also select out high school students, adult education students, and international F1 visa students. So students who falsify this information could be dropped from the teaching college, because we are saying, hey, if you are in this population, you need to use CCC apply instead of the CCC exchange or the CVC exchange. So the student is none of the above. They're going to click submit. And as you can see here, there are two processes that are going to take place, the enrollment and then the registration. So the enrollment is creating the record for that student at the teaching college or matching the student to a previous record at the teaching college. So that is processing there. And then you can see it changed registering to class. That now we are processing the registration workflow to say, okay, now we've created a student record, which there could be errors that happen there, but now we're registering the student for the course. There maybe could be errors that happen there as well, but that's why we don't want the student to close this page as we are completing those processes. Oh, good, it was successful in this test example where the student was able to add this course at Golden West College. And now this is the question we often get from our admins and students as well, is this page automatically pops up immediately after registration, where we talk about DSPS at the teaching college. We talk about payment options and reimbursement options, which we're going to get to in just a moment. However, students and admins often have questions about how to get back to this page because this is where CCPG, financial aid, student veterans, some of that information lives, and where the student can actually select to use those options. So if the student wants to get back to that page, again, if they navigate to their dashboard, they're now going to see that they are registered for this course, but then they're going to see three different links here. A link to pay now, a link to drop the course, which we're not trying to do yet, and then a course details page. So if the student selects the pay now option, the only page they're going to be taken to is to submit payment with a credit card to the teaching college. It's not going to bring up those reimbursement options because that's different than payment, right? That's a reimbursement. So to get back to that reimbursement page, you'll want to go back to those three links that we saw and click class details. And now the student can see all of those same options for those courses. And that's a little bit about our student dashboard. This is also where we've reminded the student that they're going to access their course in their home college Canvas account. So remember that the home college was Napa Valley College. So that is where this Golden West College course is actually going to appear for me as this student. If I need to ever drop the course, I can also do that from this dashboard, simply by logging in and selecting drop course. That will open up a pop-up box, which will display the drop dates for the course and then confirm that this with the student that they want to complete that action. And that is the end of our student journey video, just showing those various links, showing where dropped courses, where they can pay, etc. Any questions from the student video? Great. All right. Now, moving back into the
So
presentation.
we have
Oh,
a
please,
quick question in chat
please.
about could those screens be shared so folks can better assist students when they call? And
I
I think we
love
can. I
that.
think we definitely can. And we can share that recording as well, so you can kind of view that. So just wanted to throw that out there. But then we also had a question about prerequisites, and I think that's coming up
Ooh,
later.
oh, it's coming up. It's
Yeah.
coming up for us. So let's get into the admin side and a little bit about some of those tasks, but then save those questions for the end if we don't get back to them. Definitely. Okay, so some of you may have seen that student journey before, and some of you may have seen this before as well. This is not something you have to know. It's not something you have to save, except for if you are curious about our workflow. This will tell you where we are hitting all of the different endpoints, the different APIs, and the different statuses that we're looking for, right? So feel free to take a look at this. We're not going to dive into it too much because there are other topics like the admin dashboard that we want to spend some time on. So before we do that, we do want to talk a little bit and share just a little bit about where colleges could be with their implementation with the CVC exchange. Most colleges know where they are, whether they're a home college, a teaching college, et cetera. But what they often are unaware of, which makes sense, is where other colleges are in that process, right? So if other colleges are teaching colleges, et cetera. So just this is more just to be aware that colleges could be in any of these phases with us. And so I'll share a little bit about those numbers in just a moment. What I also showed is what the different functionality is of each of the stages. So we won't spend too much time on this. We're happy to answer additional questions, but this is more of a reminder to say you may be a home college, you may be a teaching college, and that functionality and the tasks required for each of those things are going to be a little bit different. Also, as many of you have seen, the implementation is a little bit different. So that's just more of a reminder there. Mike, did you want to add anything on that at all to review? Okay, great. So here's a little bit about our implementation numbers, just again, for a little bit of clarification. Right now for that course finder, so for colleges that have their courses available on the CVC exchange for students to search, that's 107. And we have one that's in progress and then 7 that are kind of scheduled out for the future. Home colleges, we have 109, almost 110. We're getting close to 110 with a couple that are in progress here. And then teaching colleges, this is really impressive. We have 82 teaching colleges and we have 17 in progress right now. So shout out to our implementation team. Many of you have worked with them, but also just shout out to those of you who have gone through many of these stages already. All right, now what you're here for. Let's actually go into the admin dashboard. Let's talk about the the areas of the admin dashboard that A&R needs to be aware of. So the way that the CVC Exchange has broken out these trainings is that, whoops, sorry about that. For certain areas that we're going to dive into in this admin dashboard, we're actually going to do different trainings. So if you want to learn how to create accounts or users, that's a future training. If you need to learn how to set up tuition and fees and learn more about payments, that's also a future training. Our financial aid requests and dashboard, that's a future training next week as well. And then transcripts. We set time aside for all of those topics specifically so we could really dive into those and not have to rush through them in a quick 30-second, 5-minute area. But what we will focus on today are session management, sections, and enrollments. Many of you may be familiar with these already. Some of you may be new or need a refresher. So we'll dive in. You can add your questions or bring up things that maybe you're curious about, and we can answer those here today. So we are going to dive in, and we are in test. Again, everything that we are showing today here is in test. And what we'll focus on first is setting up the term, right? Before you can have sections, before you can have student enrollments, before you can do any approvals of any student request, there has to be some sort of term setup, right? And that happens in session management, also, colloquially, term management. So what you'll want to do as your college, this could be your responsibility as A&R, or maybe it's your project lead, maybe it's your DE coordinator, but every term our support team sends reminders to say, go set up the next term. We're actually in process of that right now. The winter and spring terms are in progress of being set up because those terms are going to become live before we know it. So what we're looking for here to set up a term is you filter by your college, or it may come up automatically for you. And then you type in the term that you're needing to set up. So in this case, let's look at spring 2026 for Allen Hancock. This is what will pop up. And you don't really need to worry about any of these links here except for edit. We need to go in here and we need to edit these fields. So as Allen Hancock, what we would want to do is set up these dates and then set up and insert our term code, that session code. That needs to be put in exactly, no extra spaces, no extra characters, anything like that, because we are importing that directly. But what I want to talk about are the requirements of these dates, which, by the way, all of everything that we're saying today is included in our admin guide and resources that we'll share at the end as well. So, and feel free to ask additional questions. But this first import date is the date that you want us to start importing your courses for the next term. So if Allen Hancock says, yes, today, October 16, 2025, start importing my courses for spring 2026, because I've already made my schedule live. Students can go out and search on my website. So I would like CVC Exchange to also make those courses available to search. The registration open date is required if you're a teaching college. So if you are offering courses that students can come into your college courses, you need to tell us when they are allowed to do that. And the reason why we highlight this is because of priority registration. We don't want to guess on when your registration dates would be for your college. Often that's on your websites or updated elsewhere, but we want your team to confirm that yes, the date we're putting into the CVC Exchange is later than our priority registration dates. So let's say Allen Hancock says, okay, they can search for courses October 16th, but they can't actually register for them until November 10th. So they're going to go in and put those dates. They're going to go add the start date for the spring term. Oh, sorry, this should be for 2026, excuse me. If we're actually talking about the spring term, we would set this registration date for whatever you want that spring term to be. And then the start date for the spring term, the end date for the spring term. And then the census date is optional. That's more just for your information if you wanted to insert that. But again, we go through each of these items that are required and by what kind of stage in implementation you are. And of course, our support team is available to help at any time as well. Once
Uh,
all of this information is,
I'll
oh,
just
please, Mike,
I'll
please.
just add on the end date for the term, we usually recommend about a 30
Mm,
day beyond the end date of your typical term. And
mm,
the reason being is that that date actually controls our nightly audit. So we're checking student enrollment status in a course every night.
mm,
And sometimes colleges might change enrollment status at the very end of their term. They'll go through and they'll be like, oh, wait, that student actually, we dropped that student, or we thought we had dropped that student, and so they might
mm.
backdate a drop at the end of term. And if we're not running that nightly audit, which is controlled by that end date, then we wouldn't pick up that new status for that student to move them to a drop status. So we usually recommend extending that date a little bit just so that that nightly audit continues to run and we can catch any of those end of term updates to student registrations.
Great point. Thank you for remembering that one, Mike, and bringing that up. Yeah, to catch all those drops. Fantastic. So once this is all input, you would hit save information and your term is now set up. If there's any errors, our team is monitoring for that and we'll reach out to your team. But this is data that we need from your A&R teams or whoever your project lead would be for the CVC exchange. So that is now the term is set up. And that's that first item that we're going to go into for the admin dashboard. The next is if you are a college that is showing your inventory for students to search, right? Whether that's your home college or teaching college, P1, wherever phase you might be, if you are showing your inventory to students, this is where you can see what inventory we are filtering in. So again, we're in staging, but we are going to look at Allen Hancock for fall 2025. And I want to see any courses that we are pulling for Allen Hancock for 2025. We're in staging, so it makes sense that there aren't any. If we were to go back, maybe prior terms when they were implementing here, you can see that those sections come in for Allen Hancock. What I would like to show everyone is while this information is really helpful, and this is also where we can control a lot of that section management, I just also want to note that you can download a CSV file, and I want to showcase what that file looks like. I removed data, but what I'd like to show is if you were to download that sections report, this is all of the information you would get about those sections, which isn't available on that quick dashboard. So if you wanted to see seat count available, you wanted to see the units, you wanted, et cetera, any of this additional information can be found there. Also here in this sections area is where our team or your team, depending on how familiar you are with the CVC Exchange dashboard, if there is a course that is coming in, yes, as visible to the CVC Exchange, but for some reason there's an error with that course, we're troubleshooting something with that course, or it just shouldn't be visible, we can come here and say, hide that course, hidden. And it immediately changes to no, it's not visible for students to search on the CVC Exchange anymore. Then we can go back and change it. We say, yep, we fixed something, we adjusted something, we make that visible again. So this is where you get control over those sections. Again, our team primarily will help manage those errors and any questions that your team has, but you have accessibility to this area as well. Any questions about the sections report, or Mike, any details you want to add on the sections? Okay, great. So now we have set up the term. We have imported sections and downloaded maybe even a file to look at all the courses that I'm offering the CVC Exchange for fall 2025. I wanted to see, filter when they start, when they end. But now the main component for those of you that are teaching colleges or even home colleges with students going out to teaching colleges are the enrollments. So that this actual enrollments tab here. So this is where all the student enrollment information takes place, but also where colleges can come in and approve student requests. This is where it can be filtered and found. Now, also college requests or requests that go to colleges from the CVC Exchange are emailed to those admins who are required to do that. And they can click directly from that email to go into that request. But you are also welcome to come to this enrollment dashboard and we can walk through some of the filter options of where you can see that. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. For those of you, again, that may be familiar, may not be familiar with the enrollment details report. The first item that I want to really, really highlight is the student status. You will see lots of options here for the student status. And we get questions a lot about, oh my goodness, for my college, there are no students in this enrolled status. Well, that's actually not our end status, right? Our end status is validated and registered, right? So what we have done to help provide some clarity here is there's this awesome tooltip that you can select that actually goes through each one of these statuses and tells you, hey, this is waiting for an action, or this is an error state, and you can read through those and maybe get a better understanding of those different transitional states. However, we also have those outlined in our admin guide as well, the ones that you need to be aware of. But I also encourage you are welcome to look at any of these statuses. These are available to you and your college, so feel free to take a look at those, but we'll highlight the important ones here today. So again, let's say for fall 2025, I want to see students who have enrolled in my college, and I know Mission College just recently was implemented, so they've probably got some testing data here for us. So for fall 2025, for Mission College, I want to see all the students that are validated and registered. So I could say filter. Oh, yep, there are 6 students. This is all test data. And you can see that all of these enrollments are invalidated and registered. You can download this report and we'll walk into those student details in just a moment as well. But now for Mission College, I am Mission College as the teaching college, and I want to see what students dropped courses, right? So if we instead select dropped, oh, we did have one student drop from a course here, and so we can go see more details about that, such as when the drop occurred, did they pay for their course, etc. So those are the statuses that we, just kind of at a high level, we want colleges to be aware of: validated and registered and dropped. Those are kind of our primary two. But as admissions and records, you also have approvals that you walk through as well. So one, as a home college, would be when you need to validate residency. That is going to be registered and pending validation. It means the student is already enrolled in the course at the teaching college, but the home college, you as the home college, needs to verify that their residency status was correct. Just like we saw in that student video example, we just now need that college to go in and say, yep, that's the right residency. They're being charged the correct fees. Another one is pending person match. So this is if we believe that that student record already exists at the teaching college. We need the teaching college to go in and say, yes, this record already exists, or no, this record does not exist. Please create a new one. And all of that is done from this dashboard. So that's pretty simple. Again, email notifications of when students need those reviewed. We also send reminders of when those need completed. But the difference between this status and the last one, the last approval one, is that the student is not registered for the course. If the student is pending person match, we have not created a student record, so we cannot enroll them into a course, and we can't hold seats in courses either. So if admissions and records or whoever is assigned to review these doesn't review those in time, the course could fill up, the course could begin, and then we can't enroll the student into the course. So we just encourage those to be reviewed as soon as you get those email notifications from students, if and when possible. And then lastly, the big one for admissions and records, but also I know that we maybe had a question about, is prerequisite pending review. Similar to person match, the student is not registered for the course. Obviously, they're waiting for a prerequisite review from the teaching college to say, yes, the student meets the requirements to be added to this class, and then our workflow will continue once we receive that approval from you. This one, we do tell students that it could take up to 5 business days for colleges to approve those requests. So if you get reminders from our team, maybe for a student that enrolled in a course on a Friday, but it starts on a Monday and you were somehow expected to do that approval, we don't expect you to do that. We tell students that, hey, this could take up to 5 business days to review, which is also the typical process if the student were to apply directly, right? That prereq can take a moment to review with their counselor or the appropriate teams. So I want to pause there for prerequisite review. Let me actually pull one up here and see what other follow-up questions we have. If we were to filter by these prerequisites, we can go into the details, like I said, of this student, and we get all this good information here, which I'll go into a little bit more. But where you will see prerequisites here, this is where the student has uploaded the prerequisite for review. But this application now requires an actions. I do not have the right permissions for Ellen Hancock in tests or whatever college this is to approve that prerequisite. But if the admin did, they would see yes or no, and then a reason for the denial or approval. And then the registration workflow would either complete and enroll them into the course or say, no, you don't meet this prerequisite, and it would fail the registration, which is appropriate. And that's what we would like to see. All right. Follow-up questions about prerequisites or about student approvals in the dashboard before we move on to some of the other filter options.
We had a question in chat. So when the
Mm.
student attempts to add a course that requires a prerequisite, they're blocked
Mhm.
from adding. And do they then get a link to submit transcripts? Yes, yes, they do. And I can actually
Mhm.
demonstrate what that looks like. I've got a test account ready and pulled up
Oh,
here.
great. Great.
So let's see
Perfect.
here. I'll go ahead and share screen.
Please do.
Let's see. So I'm logged in as a test account right now. My home college is Santa Monica.
Oh, one second,
Um,
Mike. I don't think we can
oh,
see your
perfect.
screen. Let me stop sharing. Okay, you can go ahead and share now.
Perfect. Okay.
We can walk through that example.
So I've got this filter enabled over here where the student, where I'm actually just looking for classes that do have prerequisites. And so if I find a class, I'm going to look at this class here at calculus. You can see this class does have a
Oh,
prerequisite.
Mike, I still can't see your screen. I'm not sure if
Oh,
the attendees can. Um,
I will go
but
ahead
I,
and
I can't see.
reshare. That might work now.
There we go. There we go.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect.
So I'm looking for classes that have prereqs, and then I'll select one that does. I can see that flag has a prereq. Again, prereqs that must be verified. So I'm going to go ahead and try and add this class. It's going to take me back through this, and this is just in tests. So I'm just going to do test student, and it's going to load my enrollment form. Okay, so I've already it pre-populates, as you can see, with a lot of information. If I've used or if I've already cross-enrolled, which I did, then it's going to pre-fill all of that info. I'm going to select my birth date here. This is not my actual birth date, but it is the date of this student record that we've created. So I'm going to go and find that one. And then, as Mackenzie mentioned, some colleges still have this manual validation process. So this is what's triggering that manual validation process is the student is self-selecting their residency. But you'll notice that this looks different than the demo that Mackenzie shared. This is actually because this is a class that has a prereq. And so we have a different view now below my residency status. So this is the information that the student is presented with, and we have added, this class begins within 2 to 5 business days. There's a good chance that this might not get reviewed in time to actually get you into the class because we don't do ad codes, and we don't do wait lists either for the exchange. The student, there has to be an open and available seat, and the class has had to have not started in order for us to get them into the class. So we try and warn that student ahead of time to just level set expectations on this might take a little bit for someone to review and approve. So if you're adding this over a weekend, maybe don't. Maybe move on to another class because there's a good chance, and this class starts on Monday. There's a good chance that you're not getting into this. So um, this language that we've included here is very similar to what most colleges have on their prerequisite clearance forms that students would typically submit for prereq clearance. Just the international transcripts can't be used. In progress work is typically not accepted, except at some colleges where they're like, well, if the in progress work is happening here at our college, that could be accepted then. But a lot of times, we just have that kind of blanket disclaimer. And we're just using it to clear prereqs. We're not using it to do any sort of, permanent establishment of credit at that institution. Uh, so then the student is presented with these options where they can upload transcripts. We have that multiple options for if they want to submit different files. And some of that is because they might need like a letter in addition to that unofficial transcript. They might need like a letter, a clarification letter, maybe from their home college counselor sometimes of, hey, this student has actually met um, entrance criteria, for if it's like an AB 705 class and so on. And then here's where they outline what class from that transcript and the college and institution, term of completion, and the grade that actually meets that prereq. Because some of those transcripts get pretty long and it's hard to define, well, this is a calc class. what was that class called in your transcript that, we're trying to evaluate for? So it's just a great way to kind of make this a little faster for the reviewer. And then once they've completed all of that information, that's when they can then submit, and then that goes into that prereq and pending review status that Mackenzie was showing. So does that answer the question? I think
I, I think
there were
so.
a couple of questions on
They are blocked
prereqs.
from adding. One question that I did want to address is if the process fails for whatever reason, do the students get a message notifying them about why there was a failure? As of this week, we are hoping that goes live again. So students are receiving an email notification saying, yes, this was denied. They can always go see that in their CVC Exchange dashboard when they log in. However, we are not clarifying that to them in a way that's pretty immediate. So we have put that and we're testing that actually in production this week that they receive an email saying your registration failed. Please contact support if you have additional questions. And then I think we answered Olivia's question where students told they're not registered for the course. On that prereq screen, we say this may take up to 2 to 5 business days. We are not holding your spot. Like we can't add you after this course already begins. Oh, a great question from Julie. Okay. This is sent in our weekly reminders to the folks who are prerequisite admins and potentially A&R at our teaching colleges. When you are clearing the prerequisite in for a student,
Mhm.
this is very important. The prerequisite actually needs to be cleared in your system first, in Banner, in your SIS first. For a majority of colleges, that doesn't, it depends, but for a majority of colleges, you need to go through and approve that in your SIS and then approve it in the CVC exchange. And the reason for that is as simple as it sounds. Whereas if the CVC exchange attempts to register that student, we're going to hit that prereq hold in your SIS, right? So we need that removed first, and then our workflow can continue and register the student into the course. Another one that we see a lot is that if you do not close that student record in the SIS before approving it in the CVC exchange, the error that we receive is the student record is open and we can't attempt anything on this student record. Now, the problem with that is that the student then has to resubmit a registration attempt. I can't go in and say, oh, just kidding, like let's reattempt with just this one button click. They have to go through the entire registration process again. And at that point, there may not be seats available, etc. So we approve in the SIS, close the record, and then approve in the CVC exchange. Mike, follow up
Sure.
on that prereq workflow there.
No, no, I'm gonna go grab a screen and try and show what the student sees after they hit
Oh,
that
great.
submit button,
Great.
so that we can kind of just clarify.
Awesome.
We do tell that student, you are not in this class, someone needs to review.
Hmm.
I think the assumption from the student, and it's a fair assumption, I will say, is
Hmm.
that someone will review that in a timely manner, and then they will get approved, if and it's kind of in process, or so to speak.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right now, our system doesn't alert them when the course is not approved, if it's
Mm.
just never approved. Our system will let them know once it's confirmed. So once we
Hmm.
add them to a class, we'll send them an email to confirm that, and then we'll also let them know, as Mackenzie mentioned, if they're not added to the class, or if they're denied, I should say, then we'll send them that denial
Hmm.
information as well. They get no notification if that just sits in a queue and no one ever reviews it. And so that's where I think a lot of students do get frustrated, because they're like, I thought someone was supposed to be reviewing this, and I thought, I submitted it 2 weeks before the start of the term or start of the class.
Hmm.
And I never heard back from the system, so I thought I was in. And so it's kind of this implied assumption, of, okay, you should
Hmm.
you should definitely be in that class. But the screen that they see, so I'll go grab that here
Okay,
and drop it into chat. Screen they see
great.
does have that kind of disclaimer on, like, someone is
Yeah,
having to review that. You'll hear from us, when you're in.
definitely. Um, yeah, and I appreciate those questions about the prerequisite. Again, if that prerequisite is not reviewed in time, our support team, if the start date has started and the student is still studying in a pending state, our team cancels those and notifies the student that their request just was not approved in time, but that they can search for other courses instead with future start dates. But like I said, the student doesn't get like a daily update of where that is. It's only if it was approved, if it was denied, or if it was canceled and they did not get a seat, like an attempt at that registration. So I also wanted to walk through a few other filter options on this enrollment details report and note a few other things. So we walked through the different statuses that you could filter by, filtering by your college, either as a home college or teaching college, if you want to see your students going out or other students coming in to your college. You can filter by the term, but if you are filtering or searching by the student, we cannot search by SysID, right? That I just need that to, I think we get a couple admins that are stuck. I can't find the student, that you have to use email, CCCID, or the student name. And any of those will work to find the student. You can narrow it down by college or any other of that any other information, but the SysID, but there's too much overlap there, so we can't search by those. Couple other quick filters. This is where you can go in and check to see students that have requested financial aid. So I know that maybe A&R may not have a lot to do with the financial aid office except for the drops, right? That are facilitated for a drop for non-payment. You may have to communicate with the students on the CVC exchange who have requested financial aid, but maybe we're at that drop for non-payment deadline, which we'll talk about in a moment with our policies. We also, like I said, are able to filter by payment status. We're going to go into these in more detail with a different training. But that's a little bit of a quick review of our enrollment details report. And I do want to make sure we have enough time to review our errors and our other items in our presentation, but please feel free to continue adding questions to the chat. Mike, did you want to pull up anything else or add anything else before we?
I'm still running this one,
Okay,
so
great.
yeah,
Okay,
I'll let you
you
know
just
when
let us
it's,
know.
yeah.
All right, so those are the overviews of those three sections. And now let's talk about some of the common errors that students may see. You may be the one addressing this error. It could be your IT director, again, your project lead. But this is kind of a general FYI of the errors that students could potentially encounter and why they are seeing that. So first, the student could be ineligible to use the CVC exchange, but not truly ineligible. There could actually just be something wrong with their account, meaning that they maybe have the incorrect, whoops, sorry about that. Let me go back here. Oops. Sorry, it took me all the way back.
Let's see here.
So, oh, Mike, please, yeah, if you have it, go for
Oh,
it.
we had a quick question in chat.
Yeah, yeah,
Are students allowed to wait list? Great question.
great
They are
question.
not. We don't manage wait lists. And one of the primary reasons being is that that gets even more frustrating for students because they could just like wait list all over the state. You know, if they're not
Mm-hmm.
enrolled, they could be like, well, I'm going to wait list 20 courses now. The goal of the exchange is to match the student with an open seat at an available college. So, in theory, with all of the sections on the exchange, you should never have to wait list. You should never wait and hope someone drops and then try and get added maybe during the ad
Mm-hmm.
drop term. Um, because there is so much inventory out there where there is a open and available seat. So we're always trying to match students with just, hey, what was a guaranteed spot for you if we can find one. So no wait lists and also no ad codes either. So we're keeps it a little simpler for
Yeah.
managing the exchange.
Great point and great question. If you can see here, one of the registration failed errors that a student could potentially get, which is expected, but if the course is started, is already full or is on a wait list, because again, we don't add students to that wait list. So the error that you will see is registration failed because we are not adding that student to that course or to that wait list. We do encourage them to find alternative course options, of course, but that is where that wait list comes in. Great question. We won't go through all of these one by one. We will reach out to your college if we have students that are falling into any of these statuses continuously or there's a systematic error. But ultimately, what you'll see on this resolution is reach out to our team. We'll share resources and our contacts here at the end, but it's support@cvc.edu. So just reach out to us if you have questions and we'll be happy to help troubleshoot those errors. So some reminders for us to go through, making sure we can leave some time for questions as well as they come in. A couple reminders just to review. We do have links on our website of courses that are included on the CVC Exchange, so you can review those at any time. Takes you to our website here, and you can review those. If you are curious about why isn't this course showing, or faculty had a question about why doesn't this course get included. Student eligibility, that's right on our homepage as well, and students and admins can read about student eligibility and make sure they are eligible to use the CVC Exchange. So we remind our admins to continually review that. If there are changes or questions, please let us know. Another reminder that we're going to be reaching out to your teams about your IT directors and potentially your A&R folks, whoever was in charge of this, is updating our student welcome letters, just to make sure we have the correct links, the correct information from your college that you're sending to students who register for courses at your college. So we're just going to be walking through each of those. Our team will work with your colleges and get those updated. Student requests, we did review these, but here are these reminders again. I'm going to throw those up there. There are automatic email reminders sent when a student sends a request. We also send additional reminders from CVC support. Prereq and person match need to be cleared before the course start date. And residency just needs to be cleared as soon as possible so the student can make the correct payment. And then Mike talked a little bit about the prereq form or challenge form can be uploaded with the student transcript as well. So the college can review that at the same time as the transcript. And waitlist ad codes, you are almost a slide ahead of us, but we address those as in the CVC Exchange does not support that functionality. And now into our policies. Residency classification, as we've hinted at a little bit already, the CVC and the teaching college, whoever the teaching college is, must accept the home college residency designation for the student. The CVC Exchange is not doing residency validation, and the teaching college isn't doing residency validation for that student as they come in as a new student. We depend on the home college because that's where that student's MIS application was originally submitted. That's where they're submitting most of their courses. That's where that transcript's going to go, right? We need that to be where that residency is pulling from. Priority versus open registration. We touched on this during session management. The open registration date has to be later than your priority registration date each term. That's a federal requirement. We want to make sure we're not impeding on students who need that priority registration. And drop for non-payment. I promised we would get back to this one. Drop for non-payment is tricky. All of our community colleges have different drop for non-payment policies, as in some of you don't have any drop for non-payment policies. Some of you used to, and now you're bringing them back. Some of you have always had drop for non-payment policies. So what we are encouraging, potentially through those welcome letters that I mentioned or through other resources, the teaching college needs to be the one to notify the students well before the drop for non-payment deadline. And we encourage them to use the email that's listed on the CVC Exchange. Because what will happen is that students will enroll in a teaching college and they're assigned a new email, McKinsey.Johnson@allenhancock.edu. But I'm never going to check that email because I'm not an Allen Hancock student. Everything is going through my home college. So that is the email that is going to be listed on the CVC Exchange and could be better at contacting those students. The CVC Exchange support team is also happy to help notify students if there is a drop for non-payment deadline or process. We work with many colleges very closely who have processes like that. So just feel free to let us know. We're happy to help support. But the reason why we bring this up is because the question that we often get from students is, I requested financial aid for my course. Why did I get dropped for non-payment? Right? Because the student is waiting for that financial aid award before paying for their course. But if the teaching college isn't recognizing that, because financial aid requests go to the home college, then they may drop that student for non-payment. So, right. So this is just a policy to be aware of for CVC Exchange students, right? That they may be waiting for financial aid. So maybe reviewing those policies or being aware of what that means for students who are registering into your system. Student hold types. This is just a reminder that if you place a hold on any student account, a student coming to your college, or a hold for a student who is using you as the home college, they're not going to be able to use the CVC Exchange because we are reading into that hold if the student is trying to register for a course. So if you put a hold on a student account because they haven't paid for a course, they're not even going to be able to drop that course through the CVC Exchange because our system is going to hit your SIS and say, oh, nope, we're blocked from doing anything on this student record. So that's just a reminder again, but please reach out to our team and we are happy to help assist through any drop process, registration process. Mike, please, was there a question on one of those?
No,
Oh,
I
okay.
was
Sorry.
just addressing questions in chat.
Great, great, perfect. Sorry for uh, throwing you right in the fire there. Courses with co-recs. All right. This one, we are working with many colleges to kind of decide how we want to handle courses with co-requisites moving forward. But this is also just a reminder that if a student registers for a course on the CVC exchange and your college automatically enrolls them in some sort of support course, maybe a 1 credit support course or a non-credit support course, we don't see that support course on the CVC exchange, meaning the student doesn't see that on their CVC exchange dashboard. So when they go to drop the course that they did register for through the CVC exchange dashboard, they're going to get an error and it's going to say you need to drop both of these courses at the same time, but they're not able to do that. So then they reach out to our team and we work with your college to do that manual drop. But that's just something to be aware of, that if you are offering co-requisite courses or adding students to support courses, it may prevent drops or other processes that we'll just need your assistance with. Great. All right. And then CVC Exchange contacts, because we just went through so much information and so many reminders, and that this is a big bulk of work at certain points in the term to set up the term, to watch the sections could be. So what we wanted to remind everyone is that our team is working with all of your colleges with the CVC consortium group to update contacts for each college by January 2026. And this list of college contacts includes an admissions and records lead, a prerequisite lead, and all of these other roles that we talked about. So we're going to be confirming with your college that we have absolutely the right people on file for that, so we can make sure those notifications or any updates that we have are going to the right admins. But of course, you can always email our team, which I believe is our next slide here. This is a great slide. I've linked everything out here between admins and students. So there is a difference between these links. However, really, if you're absolutely lost, you're not sure who would even address this question, just email us at support@cvc.edu and we'd be happy to assist. The one link I do want to dive into with our A&R folks and some of our folks that are actually in doing these processes is this college documentation site. So this is a Confluence site that our team has put together to outline all of the resources that you will need to do anything with the CVC exchange. There is the admin dashboard guide, so you can go into more details about everything we just reviewed today. The tasks are outlined for home colleges and teaching colleges. We have documented all of our workflow guides, Canvas information, if you're so curious, and then financial aid, training, and additional support. So this is absolutely available to you as admins, and we encourage you to explore that. But also, again, if you have questions, you can always reach out to us directly.
And
And
I've
finally, oh, please, Mike,
So I was
yes,
just going to add, I
please.
finally found the screen.
Oh, please, do you want to
Honestly,
share?
I needed to log in as a student who had enrolled in one so I can share screen and show you what this
Great,
looks
let me,
like. So this is, we've
please
tried
do.
to make this as clear as possible because it
Mm,
is so frustrating and confusing for students. So this is
mm,
the request that they submit, or this is the screen they get
mm,
after they've filled out that form that I was showing earlier. Um, your seat is not saved. You are not guaranteed a seat in this course. All
mm,
communications regarding the prerequisite clearance will be sent to that email that you provided. And then they can always come back and review the status of this request
mm,
in their class schedule. So if they go over to class schedule, you'll see it does not show up in their class schedule. It shows up in
mhm,
this pending
mhm.
application status. They can cancel that because a lot of times students
Yes.
will say, you know what? Forget about it. I found another class over at this other place that I want to take, so I don't want to sign up for this anymore. So they can always cancel that, which would cancel the request, and the student would not be enrolled even if they were reviewed, but it would move that status to a
Mhm,
different status, so the counselor would know not to review it. So, but this is again, if a student has a question, like I thought I was enrolled in a class. uh, I thought, this had all kind of went through. Just tell them to log into their dashboard and they can see the
absolutely.
status there. If they got in, if they were approved,
Mm,
one will send them an email, but two, that they can always just log in here and see that.
yep.
If they're like, I never got an email. Yeah, it's just have them log in here, and they'll be able to see that pending status. And again, they can cancel if they've decided, well, Done waiting. Yeah, so
I've
that's
had
what the
enough.
student experience looks like for a prereq requested class.
Shout out, thank you, Mike, for getting that so quickly to be able to share on the student side of what that prereq looks like. That is really, really helpful. And in that pending area of the dashboard as well, because students will say, I thought I was registered for this course, like
Hmm.
Mike said. And part of the reason for that, like I mentioned, are these welcome letters that students receive from colleges. Many colleges are sending these welcome letters upon enrollment, not registration. So if the enrollment and the creation of the student record was successful, let's say college X sends an email to that student and says, "Welcome to our college." So then the student
Right.
assumes that means registration, but we haven't finished the workflow on our end, which may actually still fail. So that could be part of the confusion as well, which is why we're trying to work to get these letters updated as soon as possible.
Great point.
Yeah, that's a good example. Let me just share this one last item here, and that is back on our future training. So we mentioned, many times here about that this topic will be covered in the future. This topic will be covered in the future. This is where you can access those future trainings. You can register right from our website. You're welcome to attend all of them or watch the recordings that we'll post at a later time. We'll also post the actual PDFs of the slides for future review as well, and the student video. There's no audio, so we'll make sure that that's well noted, but then you can go through and see that dashboard at your leisure as well. Okay, that is what I had as far as sharing. So now we have time for additional questions. I see the chat has been answered by Mike, but wanted to pause with the about 2 minutes we have to see if there are any other questions or last minute pieces we can review with anyone today. Great. Well, thank you all so much for attending today. We will post these training materials later on so you can pass on to other people at your colleges as well. Oh, residency questions. Um, would you like to share more about residency questions? I did see one come in
I
there.
think I can
Blake's notes.
unmute
Oh, please. Oh, please.
there. Where did
Oh,
she?
Ariane, I can answer your question really quick while Mike is looking for that. How many courses can a student take at one time through the CVC exchange? They can take 2 courses per term, with spring and winter being included as the same term. So if they take 2 courses in winter, they're not going to be able to take any courses in spring. And that's a federal kind of state requirement that we made for the CVC exchange. And that's on our FAQ page for students as well.
Okay.
Uh,
I
Mike, yeah,
think
I'll
I
turn it back over to you.
allowed Bristelle. I think you're unmuted here, but maybe not.
Okay, there we go. So thank you.
There we go.
Um, yeah, so my question was like we get a lot of students that'll contact us like after the fact. I think they've already registered for courses and then are
Mm,
coming to
mhm.
us and saying, "Hey, my residency is wrong. It should be
Yes.
I should be a resident." And so normally we're like, "Well, contact your homeschool, but
Mhm.
what it would be the appropriate steps to take with these students? Should we
Yeah.
direct them to the homeschool or should we be directing them to like your support?
That's a great question. And that's a great time for me to be able to actually share our support page, which I am going to do here. So on our support page, what you can actually see is if we go to help articles and videos, students can search by this as well. But we are actually showing there was one, how many courses are students allowed to register for each term, wait list, Canvas. But then also on the support page, updating email address as well. So I want to take a moment just to point out the support page, which is accessible from our homepage. But if you do migrate to our homepage, where we talk about, sorry, I'm going to get to our student residency page here. Student residency, this is how we tell students to update their residency status. And this is included in our FAQs, so we'll be, students are pointed to this. But what they need to do is the CVC exchange, so support at cvc.edu, needs a verification from the home college that the student is a resident. And then what we're able to do is we confirm that actually in our APIs that that has been updated and is correct at the home college. And then we contact the teaching college to get that updated, and then we update our dashboard. The problem is if students contact the home college directly, colleges don't have the ability to update the CVC exchange dashboard, right? So our team is going to need to get involved at some point. So if you want to just loop us in from the beginning, we can even help the student by sending them these steps, right? So they're welcome to reach out to us. We can get that updated. But yeah, any follow up on that one? That was a great question.
No, I realized I was responding in chat to hosts and panelists, so no one else could see my responses. So that was my bad.
Oh,
I apologize. Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, I covered that. Yeah, so sometimes it is a technical issue with the API that pulls their residency, and we
mm,
can sort that out really quickly.
mhm,
So usually we're just like, yeah, send them on over to CVC. If
mm,
it requires looping in the home college, we can do that too. But it's better than saying the home college, and the home college is like, yeah, I don't know what's wrong. We have you on file here as a resident. I don't know why CVC didn't tell the teaching college that, so um there was
exactly.
another great question around AB
Mm.
540 students. I'm not
Oh, I'm so
sure
sorry if I scrolled past that.
if, let's see here. Christy brought that up. So
Mm,
Christy, the student should be classified already as qualifying for in-state because of that drop-down option. So if they selected, on maybe 540, then the teaching college should already have them with that, and you're just confirming the residency status. If they well, yeah. In any regard, if you're confirming AB 540 status, yes, the teaching college would get a confirmation of that to say, okay, you've confirmed that they do qualify for in-state tuition, whether under AB 540
mm,
or one of the other exemptions.
mm.
Any
Great
other questions?
questions. Um, Wendy had a question. Wendy, your question was, what happens for placement results? I'm not sure if you're still here, or Mike, if you want to take that one, or maybe we need more detail on what Wendy's talking
Yeah,
about on that one.
placement is a tricky one. It would go through the prereq clearance process, and that's where that sometimes counseling will the home college counselor might upload a second, placement results,
Mhm,
kind of
mhm,
PDF for that student to say, look, they're not going through your traditional placement process, but here's what our placement process had them. It was this class without
mm,
support. And so then the prereq clearance administrator of the teaching college say, all right, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'll just clear them with no support, and place them into
mm.
into that class um, that way. So it kind of bypasses that.
Great point. Yes. Yes, placement for courses as far as prerequisites are getting placed out of those. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because the
Yep.
AB 705 classes, they technically show it's a prereq, but it's not. It's a placement
Mm,
requirement, but
mhm,
it does
mhm.
block just open registration into that course until you've
Right.
completed placement, which these students never do. So they have to be approved as a prereq clearance instead, or through the prereq clearance process, I should say. But then you would
Right.
just bypass the placement.
Great. Okay, I think we've answered the students. Mike had sent some of his answers to host, but we were able to cover those. So I think we're good on those. However, if you ever do see additional information that we should be telling students, communicating to colleges, please send it to us at support@cvc.edu. We're always happy to review and take that into account and say, you know what, that would be really helpful. Let us take a look at that, and we can do that for you. So, any final thoughts, Mike, as we close out here?
Thank you all for attending. It's good to see you.
Thanks, everyone. We'll post the recording later. Have a great
Take
day.
care.